Welcome to Happy Homes and Gardens. I am your host. My name is Daphne Royce. I am a real estate broker, architecture, and interior designer. Almost all video gamers know Ivan Lin, who is best known for his work in the music production used in the video games in the Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts series. Ivan was born in Taiwan, grew up in Germany, and earned his master's degrees in piano performance from Yale University and currently resides in the United States. Ivan is an entrepreneur, pianist, actor, video game music producer, composer, music director, and chief conductor of Assassin's Creed Symphony World Tour, production executive of Goldstone Studios, and the co-founder and CEO of the Web3 music platform Wave. You have a most of title of anyone else I know of. Hi, Ivan.
Hi, Daphne. Thank you so much for having me.
You play music since you was young. And when did you discover, or your parents discovered that you have a music talent?
So I remember when I was 5, I moved over to Switzerland, and that was actually the first time that I was experiencing music, and in particular piano. I remember that, so I went to kindergarten there in a small town called Pianist, which is 2 hours away from Zurich. And I remember that was a music class where I put up my very first joined piano recital over there. And that was my first experience on a stage with a piano playing for people there in public. And after that, I was pretty much involved in Yamaha Music School when I was somewhere around 8 years old or 9 years old. But it was actually until when I was 12 years old I decided to really focus on classical music and classical piano training when I was 12. So I started actually relatively late compared to my colleagues, my friends at the time. Like they would start music training when they were sometimes when they were 4 or when they were 5 years old, professional training. But I started professional training when I was 12, so that was relatively late.
So how would people, or even you, manage to play piano in such young age? Because normally your hands have to be big enough to play piano.
Well, I don't think that there were music pieces designed for younger kids. You don't necessarily need to play Rachmaninoff or Liszt, where, just as you said, you need a larger size of hands in order to play such music. But there are all different kinds of levels of music that you can play in a different age. But I think the most important part is that, in addition to technique, it's the way to get a sense of musicality and the way of seeing how music could sort of influence or reflect on emotions of people, like through melody, through chords progression, through rhythm, through a lot of elements from music. So it's really getting into the music scene where you get to start getting a sense, so this is a dance music, this is a romantic music, this is a happy music, this is a piece of a sad music. So we get a sense to start exploring all different kinds of characters, personality in music when we were young, so that we would go forward with what kind of genre and what kind of style we would be focused on later on.
Were you influenced by any family members to play musical?
So both my parents were photographers at the time, and I guess at the time the living room was a studio. Like they would shoot and film items, film figures, and that's when I started to get to know, so this way, this angle of doing photo shoot would look better, or will look with the reflections or different angles of light that would be able to provide a better presentation. So actually, that was during the period of time I started to cultivate myself as part of sensing what's beauty, what's things that you would enjoy watching and seeing, and that sort of connects me back to in terms of the taste of music. I mean, after all, photography can be part of art.
Do you play other instruments other than piano?
So I played piano and any instrument that has keys, like whether it's a keyboard, it's a MIDI controller, or it's a harpsichord or a pipe organ. But when I was young, I also learned to play violin, flute, some traditional instruments, folk instruments. So I was pretty much getting to know a lot of options of instruments that I could play. And I also, at some point, I started to do a little bit of conducting. So I enjoyed a lot of different instruments and different things in music, for sure.
So what is your favorite instrument?
I would say piano, but after I started to conduct symphony orchestra, conducting is a different level of being deeply satisfied about communicating with musicians and putting together a piece of great music coming from, sometimes can be a piece of 100 people on the stage with a symphony orchestra, the choir, and this is a pure joy making music. In addition to playing piano, I love conducting a lot.
So when you're conducting, it could be maybe 100 members on the symphony team.
Yeah.
How will you manage it?
Yeah.
I mean, you're professionals, you probably know this, but for me as an audience, just kind of amazed me that you can hear every single sound for every single instrument.
Right. So I remember my very first public conducting experience was actually in San Francisco, and my conducting debut, I was very lucky to have been involved in the music production of Assassin's Creed, which is a video gaming IP developed by one of the largest developers in the world, Ubisoft. So I was involved in the music project for Assassin's Creed, and we write the music along with around like 12 composers, like with Brian Tyler, who created music for the openings of Marvel's movie, and he also wrote for Avengers, Iron Man, and also Lauren Bauf worked on Mission Impossible film. And I've been working with like great composers all together to put out a great show for Assassin's Creed. And I remember the first experience conducting publicly. I was really nervous, not only because the concert at Davis Symphony Hall was sold out, like we were expecting around like 3,000 people attending the concert, but also that was my first time conducting publicly. And a little bit of backstory, that is, I wasn't at the time given rehearsal. So there was only one dress rehearsal, which is in the afternoon of the concert date. And for a 2-hour-long program, I've got 3-hour rehearsal in the afternoon, minus 30 minutes of taking break for musicians. So I've got like 2.5 hours to rehearse a 2-hour-long program in that afternoon. So I learned from that experience that in addition to making music, the most important part is how to communicate with musicians and artists, because artists, musicians, symphony orchestra, for that concert, they're listening, they're watching the conductor to give them instructions and to guide them, to lead them to making music. So I remembered, first of all, when I rewrote the symphony, I sort of know that, okay, so maybe there was not much time for rehearsal, so that I have to work on the music score that would be a little easier for musicians to read, for musicians to perform. And also, the first thing that I wanted to establish as soon as I was on the podium, I wanted to establish this great relationship between composer, conductor, and the orchestra. So it's actually all about the communications, talking to musicians, and pretty much create this vibe that's positive, that making music is such a joy. So with that establishment made at the very beginning of the rehearsal, while you started to see the flow going really positive and smooth, that we are all together making music for a great night in front of 3,000 people. So that was quite an experience. Making debut as a conductor at Davis Symphony Hall with a full house, and also with great music, with great crowd joining us that night. And that's the pure joy about creating and making music.
I heard that was a very successful event for you.
Yes. And orchestra was in shock that was my first time conducting publicly. We didn't expect that to happen, but I guess life is full of surprises.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Let's talk about something a little bit off topic. So I understand Assassin's Creed Symphony was a world tour.
Yeah.
So you've been to so many different continents.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite continents and maybe country?
I love London, Paris, and Kyoto a lot. I mean, we've been touring hundreds of cities in the world, and I remember for those cities, usually we don't have a lot of time to explore because it's like back to back. When you finish the concert, the next day, 4 a.m., you have to head to the airport for next city. But for London, I did take some extra days over there, and we had a very successful concert there at Event in Apollo in London. What triggers me is definitely the culture and people over there. It's all about art and beautiful things, including culture, including people over there. And also when it comes to food, I was so impressed by the food in Kyoto, in Paris, French cuisine. So it's very hard to pick one single place that I would really love, but definitely London, Paris, and Kyoto. They are the three places that I remembered a lot, and with really good impression about all local things.
Good to know.
Yes.
Curious, what kind of music do you normally listen to during your leisure time?
Yeah, so I pretty much listen to everything from classical to pop to world music, jazz. Recently I started to listen to blues. It's pretty much everything.
Everything?
Yeah, electronic music as well, EDM, I love it.
Okay, let's talk about classical. So who's your favorite conductor?
Conductor, I would have to say, I started growing up watching Hobart von Karajan, not live, but through at the time there was DVD, VHS. It was when he was leading Berlin Philharmonic. At the time, you really see how he puts together a whole presentation for a symphony orchestra, whether it's for Beethoven Symphony, for Tchaikovsky, for Mahler, or even opera. You see the one entity that is presenting music in a way that is so in principle and discipline, but also so creative at the same time. And I was very lucky to have lived in Berlin for a year, in the year of 2005. And that was at the time when Simon Rattle was taking the music director of Berlin Philharmonic. So I got a chance to really listen to the orchestra live many times when I was in Berlin for that entire year. So you see the legacy that Hobart von Karajan left to the orchestra, and through Claudio Abbado, Seiji Ozawa, then Simon Rattle, you see the transition and the transformation from symphony orchestra that carried the legacy, the culture, and the way they were rehearsed, putting all together. It was really dream come true to have witnessed that orchestra perform live.
Do you have a favorite type of a music? I'm talking about like classical, romantic,
Yeah.
baroque.
So very surprisingly, it's electronic music for me.
Oh wow, that
Yeah.
was a surprise.
Yeah, so I'm having a good time in San Francisco, greater San Francisco area, because like you see people listening to really innovative, experimental electronic music, and it reminds me of good times when I was in Berlin, because that's where like people would get into really experimental music in their clubs, in bars, and like friends here, they would listen to Psytrance, they would listen to like really innovative electronic music, and that's something that I'm really triggered by, because I believe that music carrying all the history and all the centuries, actually from Baroque, like Johann Sebastian Bach, when he writes music in fugue with counterpoint, you actually start to see, okay, so music is actually really in a logical form where its emotion was revealed through a very logical sense of mind. And that started to inspire me that, okay, so we have 12 major keys of 12 minor keys, and it's about the frequency. Like in the US, we're very used to tuning under 440, whereas in Europe it's 442. There's a little bit of difference between those, but at the end of the day, it's all about math. It's all about numbers and figures within music that would create emotion. So I'm so triggered by such exploration, and that's why like electronic music, it's a little bit of technology, a little bit of numbers in there, and where it triggers your emotion. So I really am inspired by the current period of time where it's a combination of music and machine. Like this is something that I'm really fond of for the moment.
That's very interesting to know. I wouldn't guess that one.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little unusual.
Yeah. You devote entire life pretty much in music. If you would be able to master another talent,
Yeah.
what would that be?
Well, that's what I'm trying to do right now, because I'm in a tech startup, and I founded my company, Wave, which is music plus technology. And it's such a difference between being a musician versus being an entrepreneur. And but in the meantime, it's so fascinating because you get to see a lot of different kinds of people. And I started to work with engineers. I started to work with people outside the music box, which is engineers, business people, and creative talents, musicians, and more about that. So I think it was a little bit of like being a conductor, because the conductor, symphony orchestra, he or she is the only one who doesn't play an instrument, but with the baton. And it's all about leading and communicating with your team. And that's what I'm learning right now, because I don't necessarily need to play the piano in order to lead a team, but I have to talk, I have to communicate with the team, and to really put out a great teamwork as a entrepreneur. So that's what I'm, like a lot of people would say, oh, so if you've been a musician, would it be hard for you to be an entrepreneur? And actually, I always use this example. The late chairman of Sony Corporation, Norio Oga, who at the time during his tenure, who approved the deal of developing PlayStation, which is now a huge success, and also who purchased CBS, I think that was the music department, and it later becomes Sony Music Entertainment, and also who made the decision to buy Columbia Pictures around 20, 30 years ago, now Sony Pictures. he's a musician, so he's a singer. And became really close friends to Robert von Karajan when the guy was working on inventing CD compact disc. Like this term is probably so old-fashioned right now in 2022. Like, do you listen to CD? Like, now we do music streaming services. But it was actually at the time when the right side of the brand and the left side of the brand actually combined. You really started to do really creative things, and I believe that Wave, spelled as WAVV, the project that we're in, the music and technology project that we're in, it's actually the proof of being entrepreneur and also being creative at the same time. So that's what I enjoy doing a lot.
So we call those like AI music engine?
Yeah, exactly. So what this project is building is a predictive model for music engine. It's when, for instance, like you listen to music on Spotify, Apple Music, or SoundCloud, Bandcamp. The thing is that for a lot of music consumers, a lot of times they don't necessarily know exactly what's next or what would be the next music that they want to listen to. And so usually they would rely on a playlist curated by the recommendation engine. But the thing is that even though I listen to Bruno Mars, for the next song, I wanted to listen to something similar or something that I would be interested in. But I don't necessarily always carry the knowledge of the music library that, okay, so after Bruno Mars, I wanted to listen to a little bit of Maroon 5, followed by Sam Smith or Lady Gaga, followed by Katy Perry. So a lot of times we consume music because we wanted to be creative and we wanted to relax, or we just wanted to have a good time. But in terms of recommendation engine, right now, there's a lot that we can work on. For instance, on Spotify right now there are 8 million music creators, and more than 80% of the music creators, which is around like 6.3.4 million music creators, their monthly listeners are under 50 per month, which is like really, really low. So in consequence, their music isn't necessarily exposed to music listeners and consumers. So what this engine and music AI is doing is to analyze through sound wave frequency and also user interactions and engagements to create a personalized, customized playlist that would help you discover music that you will like, but you don't know yet. And it's sort of like a discovery and exploration process to help music creators connect with their echo chambers, with their target audience.
Sounds very interesting.
Yes, it's a lot of work, but going forward, this is really helping and assist music community coming together with more creativity work, with more music, with more joy listening to music and getting through the experience.
And you can listen to other musicians you don't even know of.
Exactly. So discovery.
Okay. Sounds like you work all the time, but yes. Do you have any hobbies?
Hobbies. I love traveling a lot. When I was touring, I really enjoyed waking up every day in different time zones. I know this is not for everybody, but it's for me. Whenever the aircraft would take off, that's the process for me to de-stress. So you can only imagine, like during the pandemic, now it's almost like 3 years in, it's been a lot of stress because I wasn't able to travel around. But I missed the time traveling. It's pretty much getting to know different culture, different foods, different people, different communities, and to really get inspired, because you really see like how fascinating it is. Because we were meeting a astronaut just a few weeks ago. She was describing when she was out there looking back at the Earth, it's like one sphere that it's one united world. But the thing is that when you get to different countries, different continents, you really see like different mentality, different mindset of people, like and in countries like in Italy, that's famous for it's popular for spaghetti, pizza, but in Japan that's sushi, sashimi, and in the US it's burgers and barbecue. So it's really interesting to get to know like all different cultures under one world.
I got one last question. It's the question I really like to know the answer. So,
Yeah.
what is your guilty pleasure music?
Definitely electronic music.
Okay.
I'm trained as a classical musician. I'm very used to playing unplugged, which is you don't need to plug you don't need the power for a piano. You don't need electricity for playing violin. But EDM, electronic music, sidetrain, like these are. I guess it has the connection going forward into future. So I'm really fond of seeing things in the future and doing things for future projects, and it really inspires me in terms of like when we watch movies like cyberpunk, steampunk. These are like future, not a prediction, but more like a future inspiration, and such music really drives me into those virtual worlds that could probably come true in 20 years or in 40 years. But that's what I love. Whenever I listen to electronic music, it's so inspiring for me.
So, do you have a plan to produce more of the video game music?
Yes, that's part of the plan. I wanted to introduce more innovative way and genre into video gaming IP or films, because we do think when the technology is improving, like I was watching an interview about Jurassic Park, and at the time there's a technology they would bring in dinosaurs, right? But the visual effects, like it's so improved after like 10 years, 15 years. You start to see like those dinosaurs, like, oh, it's so real. So in the meantime, we wanted to do something that's related to music as well. And coming from classical music, unplugged instruments, symphony orchestra, now it's entering like electronic music, sequencing and programming, and also through artificial intelligence. That's the way that I wanted to put music out there.
Would you mind to play a song for us?
It will be unplugged, so it will be a classical music.
Sure,
Yes.
that's fine. Yeah.
Cool. Looking
Okay.
forward to it.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Daphne.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
So who wrote that song?
So that was Chopin Nocturne, Opus 9 number 1, the first nocturne that Chopin wrote.
Thank you so much.
Sure, pleasure.